Welcome to the season finale of OHBINBusters. We're excited. We got the whole crew here today. We're in the shop of Bill and Bob Thomas. Thanks to those guys for letting us host it here. We're just kind of getting together, kind of recapping things that worked, things that didn't work, talk about ideas for 2022, recapping some things. I know everybody in this room had a trial, had some different things they were looking at, some things we learned, and all in all, 21 I think was a pretty good year for everybody. So we're going to kind of share some stories back and forth. I know we was talking to Brad there a little bit ago about his narrow corn, and I'd like to hear from Jonah a little bit on some of his in-season bean management. And I know here at the Thomas farm, you guys have implemented working with Jason, putting some 6% manganese in furrow with the planter or in your starter program, and kind of seeing some changes there. I think you guys had some success with that product and looking at some things. So.
I think so.
You want to start off by kind of talking about the yields? I mean, obviously NCGA stuff's out. Go ahead, Doug, tee it off. What'd you get?
Yeah, the NCGA yields come out, so we were hoping for more than what we got. You know, we ended up at 298.5, 331, however far they did. They take it out like 4 digits.
That's a horrible number, though, right?
Yeah, well, we're very fortunate to have that number. The ultimate goal was to break 300 this year, and you know, some things happened operationally, and I think we could have got to that level, you know, both from an in-season management practice, you know, with ground rigs, to a delayed harvest due to a combine malfunction and a 2.5 week wait for parts to get here to get back in, and that corn got pretty dry, and we had a little more head loss than what we wanted to see. So, you know, we can attribute it to that, but all in all, I think it's a good year for me. I know your NCJ entry field, you had a little bit of challenges, some wildlife, some weather. Talk a little bit about that.
Basically, the biggest thing we had there was the wildlife damage we had. You know, it's on the river. We see this a lot in our geography. You know, blackbird damage late season, came in late. Corn looked great all season long, managed for it. I mean, we still had a whole farm average of 210, so I mean, I really can't be disappointed about that. But, you know, we knew it wasn't going to ring the bell for winning or whatever, so we didn't enter that one, but that's what we ran up against on that. The bean side, we were very happy with them, I guess, considering the season we had. Came out about 93 on the beans. Had SDS come in. We managed for it, but, you know, we're doing so much to these beans, certain things you can't control, and that was one of the things we couldn't control. So we came out of 93, down a little bit from last year, but we're going to make some corrections before next year and hopefully figure that out. But yeah, that's where we were.
Yeah, I think, you know, we'll talk a little bit about that, but I think you and I might have been the only ones that may have turned in a yield. Did you turn one in for soybeans?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we had Asgrow 33 XF1s out. The way we did it, the whole farm, Lee was on vacation, you know, so we didn't have the way wagon out there or anything like that. So
Typical for Lee, right?
Yeah.
When the work starts, he leaves.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's okay.
Work was done.
Yeah. The street field, we just put the whole field and went like 72. But if we would have took out a sample, we would have been in the low 80s, like 82.3. I think was about the best patch we had. So I mean, good beans. Planted May 17th, I think. So very very happy. And we just that was we didn't do anything special with that field. It was our normal program. We just got lucky with planting date and the weather, and it worked out pretty good for us.
Which is really neat to talk about, because before we were sitting around here talking, you know, you said you planted that field what day?
May 17th.
May 17th, and, you know, Doug and I was joking, you know, we planted ours April 5th and 6th. I mean, just the geography, you know, yours is a 3.3, and we're planting a 3.8 this year. Typically we're in the 4.0, 4.3 range. It's just different to see the geography is what, you know, different guys are challenged with around in the state.
Yeah. So give us a little bit of your successes this year on some yield numbers, maybe kick back some soybeans, some corn. I know you didn't turn in, I don't think you turned in an NCJ entry, but very respectable numbers from some of the conversations we had earlier this year. So
Yeah, right across the road here, we had about 253 bushel the acre for the whole field. And then we had a 190 acre field that did about 250 one day.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one about 200 and some acres that did around 240.
yeah.
So we had really good yields, but we were fortunate to have the rain and everything.
Yeah, we were, like most of us, we were in a garden spot this year.
Where do you find such big fields at?
Whoa, don't even talk about
It's tearing out pinch row.
So, I mean, we talk amongst the group here, and we look at this, and, we each do some things differently, but at the end of the day, it goes back to, the management we're using. Starting off with the right variety or hybrid, planting conditions need to be correct. Just these little steps we take all year long that really add up to these yields we're getting with these. Doug, you're really critical on corn, on what you're doing. Beans are something I really focus on, but
Yeah. One of the successes, we talked about earlier was getting the manganese product in furrow into that starter program. And I know you guys have shared some successes with that and some visual symptomology that you've seen earlier.
very visual.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how this all started. We are implementing a lot of ideals that you guys, as a company, that we're trying to implement. And we're doing it more maybe as a farm versus as an individual. But
So moving ahead to next year, let's just go ahead and jump to that. What are you changing? What are you doing different? Let's start with you. You're right here beside me.
So,
Doug said you couldn't beat him this year.
Yeah.
You can get him next year.
I don't know if we're going to compete with Doug or not, but we're going to do good. Our best corn average we ever had was 25 bushels. Our best field went 258 this year. So for us that's great. It's been since like 2012 since we had a field average over 200 like that. So great year that way. Next year we're going to put manganese in furrow. We are going to. We're not going to push populations much. We kind of had that talk a little bit. Earlier today, like push the population. If you don't have the fertility there, you really can't push it. But we're not going to push tops much, and we're not going to change a whole lot. We're pretty happy. The Y drop thing's going to stick. Nitrogen, timing of nitrogen, I think is a big key. This like I said in those 15-inch rows, all that nitrogen was up front. I think if we can spread that out, that's going to help us because it's just to feed that plant as the season goes along. But we're gonna try a couple different products, but for corn-wise, I was happy with what we did. It worked. Was it the best year ever? Yes. So I don't feel like we really need to change it on our farm if it worked. I know the weather has a lot to do with what we're doing is working. So
Tweak the small things.
Yes.
Really
Yes.
get out of them. Yeah.
And your go-to hybrid, cropland 4676?
4676, 106 day they just performs. That and 4997, they did great. But 4676, it just stays green. It's healthy.
The plant health with that hybrid is amazing.
It's unbelievable. Like combine in November, it still stands. It doesn't look dead. It's just healthy.
Yeah. And with that ability, healthy plant late season, driving grain fill, I think that's critical.
Beans, we're gonna try some early beans. I got some early beans ordered. And then we're gonna plant we're gonna try to plant earlier. We planted some April 25th this year, and they got frosted on and a little bit of everything. We didn't have to quite replant them, but and beans just keep lowering population. 100,000 final stands all we need. So if we get that many up, but if we can plant beans April 20th or so, I think that's we're safe there. Not every year, but it's a place to start.
Yeah, fine with that. Gotcha. It's kind of like you and I were talking earlier. We're planting as early as we can, but we still know our limit. 1st of April, we don't push that calendar into March because it's not going to work for us. On our side, there's a few things we're going to change up. We learned a lot from the in-furrow and beans. We're definitely going to continue that. The cool part, I did the ROI last night on it. Really didn't add that much cost to our program. Using water as a carrier. The biggest thing we got to worry about is the tank freezing up in the 1st of April. So we're going to add a little bit of fertilizer to it to keep from freezing up on us, but. It worked great. So that's the thing we're going to explore the most on our bean side, corn side. I'm going to try like crazy this year on the corn side. We always do the 2-pass fungicide. If I can find a way to make it a 3-pass, I think to keep that plant as healthy as I can late season, really finish out those kernels, developing them. That's my goal. Hopefully I can get Doug to buy a plane or a drone or something for me. So, Doug, what's your take? What do you want to do?
I've got to turn my focus a little bit from corn to soybeans. Somebody's going to have to give you a little competition to get this.
Yeah, the man's sitting right here.
Yeah.
Sitting right here. It's not about you. I'm not worried about you.
I'm usually on beans. You ain't got much to worry about here. I'll give you a little bit of competition, but that's not. That hasn't been my big focus here as of late. It's been principally on the corn. On corn, we're still going to play around with some trials. We're going to do some different things with the planter as far as some maybe a little more in at planting, banding stuff, trying to get it there. But, as far as beans, we're gonna put our foot on the gas a little bit harder.
Good.
See what we can,
Plan before June.
yeah, we're gonna try to get there before June. Go ahead.
I'll just say, go ahead, you guys were getting very sensitive.
Do you guys, do you do variable rates on your soybeans?
I don't, do you?
We have not, but I definitely would like to in the future. Our problem is the acres, it goes back to the ROI, spending money on equipment to do that. I can definitely see a response to it, and I wish we were set up to do it, but it's just not, we haven't got to that point yet to do it.
Yeah.
That's
But-
one thing that Dan Griffin, he told us that on our black ground, we were a little too heavy.
Yep.
And it was hurting our yield.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we don't know where to,
If you have the technology, I mean, is that something
Yeah,
you guys?
we've been real rate beans for 7 years.
Okay,
now.
good.
And beans pays corn. Corn does. I don't really feel like it pays variable rate corn. I mean, we've been doing it. It'll pay a lot more in beans. I mean, we'll drop in the same round. We're kind of. I mean, we're not really like you guys, but we're kind of really. We'll drop anywhere from 100 to 180,000 in the same pass. I mean,
And I completely, like I said, we see that when we're combining along. We're planting on 140 to 160, depending on the farm. But I mean, we see a huge swing in it. Like,
yeah.
that's something I wish we did or could do, but we're not set up there yet.
well,
So,
that's why we were at 147, but over everything.
yeah.
And that's what Dan said, to get better yield, you need to cut it down a little bit on the black
Yeah.
ground. But we need it for the clay ground.
Yeah,
We gotta have that or
Yes.
more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
for
need
the
to be,
playground.
160, 65, depending on time of planting and things of that nature.
So that's what we're
That's
thinking
something we're
of.
trying to do new next year.
And soybeans is what we're trying to
It-
bump
it-
our yield.
It
on
will pay.
soybeans.
I mean,
Definitely.
I definitely think it will pay. We've seen huge responses with variable rate soybeans.
Good.
And you were talking some of those yield numbers on corn. It sounds like you're ringing the bell pretty hard on corn. Still anything you want to improve on there with corn?
Well, we've talked to Jason, there's some things we're gonna look at next year, different products and things.
Tissue sampling,
Yeah, we
try
are.
to lead us
Yeah.
to
And
feed the
Some of the
plant.
late season, corn uses a lot of stuff late,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to be a little bit better at
Yeah,
feeding.
yeah,
We talked about feeding the crop
Yeah.
actually is a better way.
Yeah.
So that's probably something,
Yeah.
try to get a little farther into that.
Yeah. Get a balance of, an understanding of those nutrients and how much of those are taken up post-tassel and what part of the plant they end up in. Do they end up in the grain or do they end up in the plant residues? Things of that nature.
Lead us, tell us what is needed
Yeah.
at that time.
now, one of the things you guys brought up was Ascend,
Yeah.
and we might, think about that for this coming year,
Yeah.
putting Ascend on when we do our fungicide.
Yeah.
And stuff, so.
You're talking send on soybeans.
On soybeans,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Well, you guys, we can talk about sending them to corn.
Yeah.
So we actually, on our NCGA on the corn, we were running the send-in furrow. We actually ran our second shot with early season fungicide, just trying to get as much of that, the PGR in that plant, try to really shoot to the next level. If we didn't have the damage that we had, we would have, we would have had some really good corn this year and we were really shooting for it. But at the end of the day, even with the issues we had in the corn, we still had a positive ROI. And it was actually a pretty positive ROI on this acre. So that was the biggest thing at the end of the day. You and I always talk about that. We want to do all this, but we want to be profitable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You did yours last night, you told me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what was your profitability?
We done very well.
Okay.
To,
Yeah.
to put that into perspective, when you're to have good market conditions, plus $5 corn, with a great yield. A lot of things had ROI that year, but when you look at it going into the 22 crop, some of those things may pencil just a little bit differently. So that's why, like you guys working with Jason and Brad, you working with Lee and things of that nature and trying to fine tune that program to fit what works at your operation. That's going to be key moving into 22. So, and I know 22 where your NCJ corn is going to be, so I know I'm going to have my work cut out for me there.
Yeah.
I know it's crop rotation. I know where it's
You know it's
going to be.
gonna be.
Yeah. Well, guys, is there anything else we need to talk about? I mean, it looks like we had a really good year.
So one question for everyone, out there, inputs are high, all right? If you're one thing that you thought maybe you could get by this year without going after, what was the one, what would you cut back on if you had to cut back on something?
New paint.
Yeah.
Equipment.
Unless it's planter
Yeah.
you know, but you want to start on that one and all?
I guess, you know, the products I use, I feel they have a high ROI anyways. Maybe I will, and it's still going to be hard for me to do this, but, you know, really dial in my nutrients per crop instead of, you know, some of those acres I kind of, in the past when P&K was cheap, I kind of just threw it out there, knowing that it was cheap building for the future years when we thought it would get expensive. And that's one thing I will watch a lot closer this year with the P&K or prices where they are. But, you know, I'm not, everything else is pretty well staying on par for the course just because
You know it works.
we know it works. There's going to be a high ROI and I want to get every bushel off those acres I can.
And that's why I said I wasn't gonna make a change. If I know it works, especially on a high fertilizer, I'm not gonna try a whole lot different because it's working.
Yes.
Well, can we go variable rate fertilizer?
Absolutely.
Like
Definitely.
nitrogen and stuff
And we
like
do,
that for some
yeah,
dressing?
and we're already doing that typically, like on all of our better ground, we're variable rating all of our P&K. The nitrogen, we've never really prescription variable rated, I guess you could say. We've looked at it, but again, nitrogen's been pretty cheap historically, so we haven't really made that a concern. We should have, but moving into 2022, we definitely will.
And between 90 cents to $1 per unit in, I think variable rate nitrogen would be a decent factor, you know, to take a look at.
And
Yep.
cut your cost a little bit.
Yeah.
The way to make more money is just keep pushing the yield.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, so when you
Yeah.
start cutting back.
That's why it's hard to
Yeah.
start cutting back.
So,
Yeah.
Doug, what's your plans? What are you looking at for next year?
I can talk about things that aren't going to change for sure, kind of like Brad's saying, you know they work. My starter program for the planter is not going to go down. You know, usage wise there, anything, even for what it may cost with, you know, liquid phosphate and phosphates in general. You know, some of the, like Jonah says, most of our P and K, predominantly the P is variable rated. K, we kind of went to a straight rate application on some stuff. So, you know, obviously most of us here are using nitrogen stabilizers, but if you're not, that needs to be a factor that
Yeah, I mean, we
most
don't-
guys look at.
We definitely don't want to waste the money.
Absolutely.
No, protect what we're putting out there. I mean, our geography, if you buy nitrogen, you're buying a stabilizer. It's not really even a,
Yeah,
most guys don't even question it.
most guys do.
Yeah, so I mean, that's something definitely moving forward.
Yeah,
If you're not, you definitely need to look at it and do it.
You know, one thing for us, we have changed operationally, not related to high-end yield, is the way we're managing some of these beans and are going to manage them, you know, even more going into 22. We have changed the maturities. I know you said something about planting a little earlier maturing bean. That's kind of what we're taking a look at for us as well. You know, I need to get this beans off, get that crop off. You know, hunting season's just around the corner when the bean harvest is. I need to make sure that I don't confuse the two.
We're on the combine, Doug.
Sometimes they frown on me.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Well, I guess one of the things we talked about is we put on, right before our beans came up, we put on 100 pounds of potash, 100 pounds of AMS, and 100 pounds of MAP. Now, do we continue that, Jason, or do we need to, some of them said that because you put the AMS and the potash together, it's not working good together. You know, that you're not having a yield bump from that. So I guess we're thinking about that.
Trying to do more tests and more trials to see what we come up
to
with.
see
Yeah.
what,
By putting the fertilizer on closer to planting or even into planting is kind of the new concept that we're trying to come up with. For every individual is a little different. For Bill and Bob, seeding rate's gonna be a big one. When we go back to saving money, the seeding rate is probably would be their number one thing where we can kind of dial that in.
Yeah,
a little bit
absolutely.
more. But as far as NP&K, I'm like you when it comes to row starters. It's not more taking out; it's actually more putting in.
Yeah.
You know, it's getting that plant going early.
Well, we've seen the benefits of getting for a 2x2x2 and then and the nitrogen applications. That plant just never stops.
And all this talk about big yields is how much are we taking out?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Too, Bob. That's a very good point.
We gotta replenish that.
Yeah.
That was taken out.
And
So we
factor in
keep-
crop removal, you
So
gotta put her
even
back.
though the
Yes.
price has gone up.
Exactly. Even understanding, you know, it's a return on investment, all that.
Yeah.
But basically, I mean, if you want another good crop, you got to feed the crop.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's my biggest fear, you know, when somebody wants to cut back, even if you are going to cut back, make sure the timeliness of that application, that nutrient, you know, in-season application, things of that nature.
Tissue sampling is pretty cheap, but it's a good way of figuring out, maybe being a little more specific on what that plant needs.
And the timeliness.
Timeliness, yes. So,
Well, I think that's a pretty good wrap up for the year. Hopefully everybody's enjoyed watching us a little bit this year, and we've all learned a lot from it. Look forward to what next year brings. Can't wait a whole year to beat you again, Doug, on beach. I guess we'll see what happens, man.
Just had to go there.
Yeah.
I mean,
You beat me 2 years on corn, so I can't really say anything.
actually 3, but who's counting?
Well,
we would like to at least thank all the growers that participated.
Absolutely.
Thank everybody.
It's been extremely fun,
Yes.
you know, and Jonah and I said, when we started it, to the whole bin buster deal, you know, that we wanted to prove that you could do this. You didn't have to have, you know, everything. You could work with what you had and still make a great crop with return on investment. Do things that work for your operation and balance your operation. You know, it's not necessarily a one size fits all. Some stuff that works for us may not work for everybody else. You know, I like some of the stuff Brad does, you know, and I like some of the stuff they do here. Can we apply that to what we do? Maybe, maybe not. But, you know, some of the concepts, like we're talking, you know, with the starters and things like that, those will play. But,
and definitely going to thank Courtney for everything she did for us. So.
we really appreciate it. We really
Especially the
do.
pizza today. I mean, if that's all she was good for is pizza. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Well, thanks a lot. We'll see you in 2022.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.